Give me the red light. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Longbox Guys. With me, as always, is some of my very best friends since I was a very little kid. Mikey, that's a very attractive pussy you got there.
Thank you very much, but we don't use that word.
Pussy cat?
Yes, I think that's acceptable. I don't want Diane sending us any emails or texts. But thank you very much. This is Grim. He is a purebred alley cat.
A purebred alley cat. By the way to go, Great Wall of China on the defensiveness on that one, Mikey. Jesus Christ.
I was chastised by Diane once, and that's all I needed to be chastised.
What are you drinking tonight, buddy?
I am drinking soda because I have work stuff going on.
Well, it's smart to be doing that since you're flying a plane. That made me laugh. Josh, how you doing? What are you drinking?
I am, well, mostly it seems like spilling. A beer called 10 from Treehouse, which was their the beer they made for their 10th anniversary. And
is it good?
I think I've only got about 9.75 because it's spilled.
Tommy, how about you? What are you doing and what are you drinking there, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I am drinking some Grangestone 12-year-old single malt scotch, and it is delicious. How are you doing, Tommy? What are you drinking?
I'm doing great. I'm drinking Canadian Club out of the jug plastic because I'm fancy.
Fancy.
But I'll tell you this, it puts me right to sleep. Oh, yeah, like a baby. Speaking of which, today we're talking about the Sandman, Neil Gaiman's one of the ever-living, the harbinger, the master of sleep, the dream realm, if you will, Sandman. And I could not be more happy with every episode I've seen so far. I'm 4 in, and I'm just having a blast. How you guys doing?
We're going to say spoilers.
Spoilers, yes.
Spoilers.
If you have not watched the Netflix Sandman, stop, go ahead and watch all 11 episodes, and then come back and listen to us. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We got to give more of a pause than that. Like, pause.
Pause.
Why? They can literally stop the podcast.
I mean, they can, and then.
I don't think you know how podcasts work.
And then,
I don't think I do. They have to stop the tape, and they have to take 2 pencils. And they have to.
Yeah, crank it through until you get all the things back in. Yeah.
The struggle was real in our days, gentlemen. The struggle was real. Everyone's enjoying this, I hope. Is everyone... I think you're all farther along than I am. I'm up to episode 4. I'm the lollygagger, I think. Josh, have you seen the whole thing?
Yeah, I've completed the whole series. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, we got, Neil Gaiman. It's got an amazing cast. I'll just list a couple of these folks off. We have Tom Sturridge as Lord Morpheus, as Dream. Boyd Holbrook as the Corinthian, doing a great job. Vivian Akiampong playing Lucian, the librarian. And I probably got that last name wrong, but do my best out here. Patton Oswalt as the voice of Matt the Raven.
And, that's so much fun.
So good. Jenna Coleman as Johanna
so
Constantine, and if you haven't seen the episode, Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer. It's pretty fantastic. Oh, and Kirby Howell Baptiste as Death. She is amazing. Really been enjoying her.
She was so good as Lucifer, like just menacing. Like my very favorite Lucifer I've seen because there's so many good actors who've done it. But boy, up there.
So in that vein, just before we get tracked down the track here, the guy who played Lucifer in the Constantine movie.
Boom, you got me. That's mine.
He's my favorite. He is my favorite representation.
I don't want to get into it, but how good he played that. Even when he was lighting a cigarette and he was teasing him a little bit, it's just such a dick Lucifer move. Like everything about him is a dick.
It's good.
That was really good one.
It's a good one. But back to
And we could go off on a tangent because they've announced that Constantine 2 is getting a sequel.
Yeah.
We'll go off on a tangent on that. We'll do the Constantine movie at some point, I think. Maybe we'll do the whole Constantine as a movie and Constantine as a thing. And we should. But I did like seeing the character Joanna Constantine. There were so many parts of her that seemed to just flow with that whole Constantine vibe. I think they did a great job. But before we get into that, Mike, you want to give us just a little bit of why Neil Gaiman took over Sandman? You can say no.
I thought Josh won. Why did he take over Sandman? Why did he write it?
Yeah.
So if we're going into the comic book lore, it was the launch of the Vertigo adult line. And so Neil Gaiman, a large fan of comics, had seen, the Golden Age Sandman, and then I guess the Bronze Age Sandman that we talked about last time, maybe the Silver Age. I don't know what the Kirby Simon version would be. And he took all these different parts of DC history and kind of merged them into this story. Sandman is an interesting creation because it's a Vertigo comic owned by DC. However, after the first few issues came out, it became a massive hit. And Gaiman was able to leverage that to gain control of his characters, which is why there hasn't been a Sandman movie up until this point, because Gaiman has always nixed it because he has the control of those rights. So anytime DC wants to use any of these characters that he created for the comic book, they have to pay him, which is why you don't see Morpheus too much in comics. However, with that being said, the Sandman TV show is a faithful adaptation of the Sandman graphic novels. We've already recommended the Sandman graphic novels many times. It was on our top 100 comic books of all time. And I'm sure if we did an entire, we could do episode after episode on just each graphic novel. But when you take it as a whole, the love that Gaiman has for these characters and to make sure that this TV show was done correctly really shows in every episode, because the episodes are all based on different stories from the Sandman comic, but it's not the entirety of the Sandman comic. So just for example, the first episode, Sleep of the Just, is where Sandman gets captured. In this episode, it ties in with a lot of the DC comic lore that goes later on. For example, he gets his instruments stolen, and one of the instruments he has is a ruby, and that gets brought to a character who we see later on in the TV show. His name is John, but John is actually Dr. Destiny from the comic books. And in the comics, Dr. Destiny is able to control the Justice League of America's dreams. And he goes from kind of a charlatan scientist to who was bluffing the Justice League in the first thing. And then all of a sudden he's got all these magical powers. It's like, where the hell did that come from? And Gaiman takes that history and is like, oh, let me tell you where that came from. And does a really good job of showing the results of it. He does that a lot for many of the different characters. John Constantine was supposed to be in this show, but they don't have the rights to John Constantine, even for TV. It was just a tangled web. So Gaiman was like, all right, Joanna Constantine instead. And they made her slightly different, but definitely a relative of John.
Yeah, they said, like, I've known a lot of Constantines in my time, which is fit perfectly. Just a perfect little fit into the universe.
They also take Cain and Abel, who have the House of Secrets and the House of Mystery, which, Tom, you love.
Love! They play those characters off so well. Cain and Abel are just some great characters, and they invite him into the House of Mystery and in the House of Secrets. You can see that rivalry right off the bat. The actors who are doing it really seem to really get those characters for me. And I want a spin-off of the Cain, and I want the House of Mysteries and the House of Secrets to have like half-hour specials that rival each other. That would be the best thing ever for me. But I thought they did a great job with Cain and Abel.
Yeah, so we talked about the Silver Age, the Simon and Kirby Sandman, and this plays through in this TV series too. Instead of it being an adult who gets Garrett Sanford, it ends up being the brother who is trapped by a nightmare, but he's not really trapped by the nightmare. The nightmare creates a safe realm from him to escape the horribleness of his actual life. And that it's representing Glob and whatever the other guy was named. But they do. Gaiman does a great job of kind of like Robert Kirkman in Invincible, where, yeah, I wrote this stuff a long time ago, but I'm willing to improve on what I had written. So in this, they improve on it because in the comic book, the nightmares who are behind the Sandman get captured and put back. But in this, the nightmare has changed, fundamentally changed in the time that Morpheus has been captured. So I think I'm getting way far ahead of ourselves. We should probably go back to the plot of the series. Morpheus is one of the Eternals, gets captured, is gone for over 100 years or almost 100 years. He's imprisoned, finally is able to escape. And when he gets back to his realm of the dreaming, he finds out that the dreaming has deteriorated without him there to supervise, and that 4 of his creations have escaped into the real world, and they don't know where they are. So there's a lot of different stories. Rather than going episode by episode by episode, maybe we should just talk about, our favorites.
Well, mine was definitely the one where Cain and Abel were in there. In that one, the Sandman needs to get a little bit of his power back. He doesn't have a lot to work with, but he did create Gerald. Gerald is the beloved pet of Cain and Abel, a very cute little dragon-type creature. Oh, you're muted there, LT.
Thought it was Gregory.
Was it Gregory?
No, Gregory is the gargoyle.
Well, Grigory. Grigory is the gargoyle. Gregory was the dragon, I believe, but I might be wrong there. And to get some of his power back, to get some of his strength back, he needs to absorb Gregory. Cain and Abel are totally against this. Gregory the dragon himself seems to be a willing participant in the reabsorption. If not willing, at least he understands that it's his duty, bows his head, does the will of the Sandman. Cain and Abel are devastated beyond belief. Cain actually kills his brother over it, though that doesn't last very long because first murderer, first murder victim, that's just a loop they're stuck in forever. They are railing against the Dream King. The Dream King uses that small amount of power that he got back to go and get some of his sand back, or get some of the power back, so he can so he can go talk to the Fates, so he can find out where some of his instruments are. When he does, he has to find all these other things, during which he finds an egg. He brings that egg back, and that at least is the gargoyle egg that he then gives to Cain and Abel that hopefully helps them get over the fact that Gregory was lost.
And if you liked that episode, which is the second episode called Imperfect Hosts, read Sandman issue number 2, and that's the basis for this issue.
Yeah, I mean, if you get the trades, and it's Preludes and Nocturnes and the Dollhouse, that collects the first 16 issues, that encompasses most of what happens in the show.
Yeah.
We should also mention, because we didn't, that while the Sandman is in prison, the world suffers terribly because the Lord of Dreams isn't helping with dreams, or isn't presiding over dreams. So some people can't sleep, which is a horrifying idea. And some people can't wake up, which is another horrifying idea. And some people sleep, but they can't dream. Also horrifying. So the world is suffering terribly under the fact that the Sandman isn't there helping dreams do what they're supposed to do. Some people aren't affected, but some people just never wake up. It's horrifying.
LT, what was your favorite episode?
I really liked the episode with the cats.
The last Dream of a
Yeah,
Thousand
it was like the
Cats?
next to the last one, The Night of a Thousand Cats. I thought that was really well done. It kind of broke away from the main story of Orpheus kind of taking control of the dreaming and went into this sort of side story of cats and how, in their world, if they could just believe that they could convince everyone to dream the same dream, that they could change the world. And it was just this great little side story that had nothing to do with the main story that kind of linked everything. And it was just a wonderfully drawn and done vignette.
Yeah, and that also has another episode kind of attached onto it. There's 2 episodes in that last one, and that's the story of Calliope, who, like the Sandman, a former lover of Morpheus, is imprisoned by several horrible men.
Yes.
And
all writers are liars.
Yes, Neil Gaiman says a lot about himself in that episode, I think. And that's kind of, although it's Neil Gaiman, it's got a lot of Alan Moore in it, if you know what we mean.
Yeah.
And the longtime listeners of it, you get the idea what we mean.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
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 And that episode, I think, was called Calliope, where he where a muse was trapped by a writer and then given from one writer to another, and she was able to escape and write a request to Morpheus to free her. And Morpheus, having been imprisoned himself for so long, took this plea to heart, even though he hadn't forgiven Calliope for leaving him and such. Certainly had a grudge against humans at that point for imprisoning, and he made that human pay. And it was also very, very closely related to the story in the Sandman book, which I've already talked about on the podcast.
Well, all right. Josh, how about you, brother? What's your favorite?
So far, I think it was episode 6, The Sound of Her Wings, and this is where they introduce Death, as well as the subplot of a character named Hob, where Death shows Morpheus how some humans view the gift of life, and she takes death away from someone and essentially making him immortal. And Morpheus and him meet in a pub every, was it 100 years?
Yes.
And that relationship as it grows and changes over the course of human history is a joy to watch. That episode was fantastic.
And it's one of the episodes, there's a couple episodes where Morpheus doesn't really have the same arc in the comics that he does in the TV show, where he learns to respect humanity more. Like that episode shows that this guy is kind of his might be his only friend.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a really amazing episode. And Death is just she's so great.
So delightful in that episode, yeah.
I love the fact that she views her job as she's helping these people. And it really comes through, like, at the end when they're never alone because she's there with them.
Yeah.
It's kind of a beautiful story.
It is.
I've always liked that about Death. I remember from the comic book, she's in New York City and she's helping someone make the journey to the next life. And they're just walking down the street talking together. Everyone else can see Death, which was kind of different for that particular comic book. And a hot dog guy goes, "Hey, you want a hot dog?" And Death goes, "Sure, thank you." And they jump in a taxi, and the taxi driver goes, "Hey, no charge for you two. You seem so nice." And the guy's like, "Why are these people being so nice? It's New York." He goes, "Everyone likes me because everyone needs me at the end." And I really enjoyed that little bit in the comic book, because I'm like, the world would be a horrible place without death. And the idea that death is always there to comfort you at the very end is comforting.
And I like that Death's view of life is everybody gets the same amount of time to live, a lifetime.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. She helps babies through old men. It's a very nice episode, and does a great job, because Death was probably the most popular character from the Sandman.
I would think so, actually. I mean, not just because the character is so cathartic. The way she was drawn really hit a zeitgeist at the time. I think a lot of people like that goth girl adaptation of what Death looked like. She's drawn in a very 90s kind of hip, cool way.
And the Death and the High Cost of Living was a great comic book.
Yeah, it was a 4-issue series, also by Vertigo.
Yeah, and that thing that you said, Mikey, was repeated so often in the comic book. You get what everyone gets. You get a lifetime. I really enjoyed that too.
Yeah, and I think the thing I liked about the Hob relationship was, I think, Mike, you're right. That's where he realizes Hob is his only friend. But I think it sets the table for the next 5 episodes, where he realizes, 1, that he needs friends, and 2, what it means, how to do that, right? It's the lesson for him to turn sort of the realm around, especially with the other characters, that he's like, oh, I really do have to do things for these people in order to get back what I want, So it's he discovers human nature, and then he carries on for the next 5 episodes.
And just a quick point of fact, we've accidentally said the Eternals many times. I think we've also done it, but these are the Endless.
Oh, sorry.
I did it once. I did it once too.
Yep, my bad.
I was parroting you. I said it right after you did it.
I will. My favorite episode. I'm going to cheat, because it's 2 episodes. It's the episodes 9 and 10, The Collectors and Lost Hearts, which are all based on the same comic book, The Collectors. And it is about a convention of serial killers, which is just so fucking amazing. And the fact that you go from sci-fi to these heartwarming tales to a fable about cats to a convention of serial killers and a little boy just wandering around the convention. It's just such that's the greatness of the Sandman. They go from, hey, here's the supervillain Dr. Destiny, but oh, hey, here's also this very real world threat that it's great. There's a lot of good characters. I really thought the Corinthian was very scary. And he is a nightmare come to life, and he's carrying out his function. He's just doing it in the real world instead of in dreams.
Yeah, he is horrifying. He's a horrifying character.
And so fucking charming. That's the great part about him, too. Like, every time he's on screen, you're like, oh, yeah, I get why people would be like, oh, yeah.
I flinch every time he reaches for the sunglasses. Every time he goes for those glasses, I flinch. I don't like that.
And so oddly, the only place I remember that actor from, the Corinthian, is he's one of the Reavers in Logan.
Wow.
He's like the main bad guy in Logan.
He looks like the guy that's behind the bad guy in every 80s movie. Like, he's not the bad guy, but he's the guy going, yeah, Johnny, in the gym. You should kick his ass.
But yeah, I'm sure he's done something else. But
see, and he reminds me of the engineer from Enterprise.
No, I just remember him in the back seat of the limo and Logan being like, "You're the Wolverine. I'm a big fan."
Yeah.
And that's yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, that's it. That's the guy.
Once again, I just see him like, Johnny, he took your girl, man. You should totally kick that guy's ass. That's all I can see when I see that guy. But not the bad guy. The bad guy's sidekick.
Yeah. yeah, once you realize, once he takes the glasses off, what his eyes actually are, and you're like, oh damn.
That's not good.
Because I think the first time it did it in the episode, and I didn't really remember it from the comic, and I was like, what's up with that guy's eyes? Hold on, pause. I had to put my glasses on, lean in real close. I was like,
Don't do that. Don't do
fuck
that, Josh.
that's awful.
Yeah.
I gotta stop. Yeah, I'm going blind on this one.
Yeah, just get the bleach. Do the Trump thing. Get the bleach out. Get him in the eyes.
Yes. But
That was not
right,
something I wanted to see.
Yeah, that was that whole series in there at the convention is both disturbing and entertaining and right in line with what I wanted to see the show do. Right? Ride the line between great story and just like some so that dark underlying thing that just lets us know that the Sandman has a purpose out there.
Neil Gaiman does that really well. He really does.
Yeah, if only all of his characters didn't speak like English professors, even 9-year-old girls, when he was writing, I would enjoy his books more.
That's true.
I love you, Neil, but fuck, little girls don't use words like antediluvian, but somehow the 9-year-old does. I don't know.
Ambience. Why did she use the word ambience?
Like, yeah, but
even like the character John, who got the gem, Dr. Destiny, like they gave him like he didn't have to be that smart. Could have been something dumb about that guy.
You'd think he wouldn't be that educated.
Yeah.
He's a doctor.
Oh, yeah, he's a doctor. Yeah. I didn't go to evil ventriloquism school for 4 years not to be called doctor. Thank you. Any last words on this series? Except watch it. And it was great that they put out a bonus episode. Everyone thought it had ended. And then boom, bonus episode at the end. That was great.
Yeah, it's got great critical response. It's one of the most watched shows on Netflix. Unfortunately, they're not sure if there's going to be a season 2, even though everybody loves it because it's expensive to make. Because
that was not cheap.
The Lucifer episode, super expensive to do all those special effects.
So here's the question. Which is the better duel?
Black Lucifer?
Lucifer versus Dream. Or, no, it's the Sword and the Stone, Tom.
Sword and the Stone, yeah, you're right.
And it's Merlin versus Mim. Which is the better... Which is the better duel?
All right, Merlin versus Mim. Just visually.
Yeah. Well, no, visually, I would give it to Sandman. If I'm just looking at the special effects, come on, it knocks you out. But I had more fun watching Merlin and Nim.
Yeah.
Plus,
the special effects were great.
But you do get Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, you do get Patton Oswalt coaching him on.
Come on, your fucking dream.
Come on, your dream. Your dream. You got this.
Paulie,
don't die.
Paulie, I don't got any more in me. Paulie.
Rack,
you can do it, Rack. Thank you, Josh. I really did enjoy that scene. That was a fun scene. I had a good time.
It was, yeah.
By the way, I thought, until you told me it was Patton Oswalt, I thought that was Stone. David Stone. The never nude guy. Maybe I got his name wrong.
David Cross.
David Cross. Thank you. I thought it was David Cross until he said it was Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, I always think of him as chicken pot pie. Chicken pot pie.
That time, so a quick side note, the weird time I got Janine Garofalo's phone number and email, and then we burned it later because that was too much power for us to have in the 90s. David Cross was there with her, and David Cross goes, "Hey, do you know me?" I'm like, "No." I'm sorry, I just don't. You seem very funny, very nice, but you're not as famous as it was. Janine Garofalo and what's his name, Stephen Wright, and Dennis Leary staying at my hotel, and they all came down together. And I'm like, "Hey guys, have a good time at the Cam Neely Foundation. Thanks for staying at the hotel. If you guys need anything." Janine Garofalo liked the bunny with a pancake on its head, so it was, "Hey, can you email that to me? Here's my contact information." She gave me her card. I'm like, "This is too much power. We burned it later." And David Cross says, hey, you know all these guys, you know me? I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't. You seem very nice. So he probably has a grudge. It's my point.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm
all
sure.
these years later,
Yeah,
he's like,
I'm sure he
"Frickin'
remembers
That's what he's
concierge."
thinking
exactly.
about. That's what's keeping him up at night.
The goddamn concierge at the Sheridan Commander in Cambridge, Massachusetts from 1992 is my mortal enemy.
That's right.
We should have kept Jean around for this phone number. She might answer it now.
So here's a trivia question. Does anybody know what role Mark Hamill plays?
All right. In the Sandman.
In the Sandman TV show.
Was he a demon?
Was he who?
A demon?
No. It's a good guess.
Good guess.
See, the voice of Gerald.
Nope. He's the chain-smoking janitor, Mervyn Pumpkinhead.
Oh, he's Pumpkinhead. Okay.
Oh, Pumpkinhead. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Any last words
You're
on
gonna
this
send the bird in? You're just send the new guy in?
Anyone have any last things on this? Very, very good. I don't know why I was a little reticent to try this one. I stayed back. I was like, it's not good. Because I was worried they weren't going to put the money into it or it wasn't going to be as good as the books. The books are so good. How often do books... This might even surpass the books a little bit in my mind. I mean, this is as good as the books to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't happen much. So it was such a high watermark, I was afraid.
And they follow the book so closely.
At first,
they
I was
keep the
afraid. I
same
was
tone,
petrified.
they keep everything.
I mean, my final thoughts are, yeah, like if you were worried that this wasn't going to live up to your expectations, cast that aside and watch it.
Yeah.
The cinematography is fantastic. The actors are fantastic. I don't know who David Buckley is, but man, the score and he does the score and the music, absolutely fantastic. The cinematography was great. The effects were fantastic. Like, really, I think everything about the show is really top notch. There's very little I could find to even nitpick about for the show, honestly.
Yeah.
And I fucking nitpick shows.
Yeah, you do.
It's true.
It's
No
true.
lies detected. I fucking nitpick the shit out of stuff. And I mean, if anything, I will say the run up in the first couple episodes for new viewers is slow.
But for us, it's such a great slow boil.
It is, but you got to make it through.
Yeah.
Do not get dissuaded by episodes 1 and 2. Get through that and get to the meat of the series. You will not be disappointed. This is good stuff.
I think if people liked American Horror Story before they came to this, they'll like that because it's that same slow boil. That might be a saving grace for it. It might be an actual thought. I just love that slow boil. That Aleister Crowley type character that guy played, the guy that was from the head Lannister from Game of Thrones. Is that right? He's just so good. So good. Anyone have any last words on this? Good. Mike, what do you got at the front of the long box?
At the front of the long box, I'm going to recommend something that is not a comic book. I'm going to recommend a book called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It's by V.E. Schwab. It is an excellent fantasy novel. In it, the main character, Addie LaRue, is a French maiden in the 18th century, and she is scheduled to be wed to a man she does not love. And she goes out into the woods to pray to the old gods to save her. But unfortunately, she doesn't realize she's praying after dark, which she has been warned by the local witch never to do. And the darkness answers and says, "What is it you wish?" And she starts rambling all the things she doesn't want. And he's like, "You're not asking for anything. You're saying what you don't want." She says, "I wish to be free and live my own life." And so he grants the wish so that way she can never leave a mark. And when people meet her, as soon as they get out of sight of her, they forget that they've met her. so she is free of everything. Unfortunately, for her, this is a major curse. She doesn't age, she doesn't die, but she feels hunger and pain all the same. So, not to give too much away, at one point, she starves to death one winter and freezes, and she wakes up healed in a pile of bodies. So it's an amazing story. As soon as I heard about the curse, I was like, how is she going to beat this curse? How does one beat a curse like this? How does one even live with a curse like this? Very well done. Highly recommend it.
We must have talked about this a few weeks ago, or someone just talked about this, because I know this book, and like living without making a mark seems like just such a horrific curse, because we're social, we're strongly social creatures. We need that social bond. I mean, that's why we're on this damn podcast together every goddamn week. We're aggressively social creatures. Aggressively social creatures is something that a scientist said during COVID. Like, it's going to tear us apart not to talk and be together. And like being that alone seems a horror.
And so one of the things that draws me to it, like with the Sandman, there's the idea of the darkness, that's God that gave her this curse. He's the only one who remembers her. And he visits her every so often to see if she's going to give up and give him her soul. But because of the constant interactions, it's hard to determine if he actually becomes friends with her or not. So there's a lot of great dynamics to the book. Highly recommend it. But that's neither here nor there.
What we're really doing next is what's in the back of the Longbox here, LT?
I have Batman: The Last on Earth. This is written by Scott Snyder with art by Greg Capullo. This came out during the pandemic back in April 2020, and it is a dark story. And it is, I love Scott Snyder's book. His Court of Owls I thought was an amazing story, so I figured I'd give this a try. This is a dystopian Batman story like no other, and it was not the best, so I cannot highly recommend it. It was okay, but man, you could tell it was written during the pandemic, because it's dystopian to the limits, to the point where the Earth is pretty much destroyed. The Justice League is gone. There's remnants of it. Wonder Woman's still around, but Superman's gone. The Earth is just desert, and scraps of people are trying to survive. And Batman is kind of reborn through machinery that he had put in place so that the world would never be without a Batman. And so it's all about Batman trying to rediscover himself and find out what happened to the world, and try to make sure that people are still okay, and to try to save the people that are left. And yeah, it's dark.
It's a Black Label comic, right?
Yes.
So. Yeah.
Yes.
So that means it's their adult print, not as suitable for children.
Yeah. I mean, it has kind of zombie Green Lanterns that are manifesting sort of giant infants that fight each other and fight people.
That sounds terrible.
Yes. Yes.
Just making sure. It does sound terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Joker's a disembodied head that becomes a Robin.
Is it Vargoyle?
What?
It disembodied head. He's like a Vargoyle. Remember the
Gargoyle? Yeah.
Yeah, their
Well,
heads
I mean,
rip off,
eventually
their guts
he
hang out,
gets
and they
he
fly
gets a
around, turn
robot
other people
body
into
eventually,
vampires.
but